My great teacher was Miss Carolyn Foley. She was my fourth grade teacher. And I think she was the first teacher that I ever had who seemed to be her own person. And she was very creative. She played the piano. We'd sing songs like, I went to the animal fair. The birds and the beasts were there. The big baboon by the light of the moon was combing his auburn hair. And she had black hair, and she wore these spike heels, and she'd play the piano, and she'd say sing. Well, Miss Foley said sing. It wasn't like the music teacher, when she'd say sing, we just sort of sing louder. But with Miss Foley, when she said sing, she was actually asking us to sing, to tell our song to the world. And she had that quality. In many of the other classes in school, we did worksheets. In Miss Foley's class, we did projects. And I remember the project was this important thing that you had to do, where you had to stay in at recess and talk to her about it. I did mine on the ancient Egyptians with Juliana Hill. We worked together on this project together. And it was like important. It was more than school. And it started in September, and it didn't end until like May. We did things that lasted a long time. And more importantly, though, Miss Foley kind of cared. And I went to see her. I hadn't seen her since fourth grade, and I knocked on her door. This was like about 30 years later. And I said, do you remember me? And not only did she remember me, she knew exactly where I sat, like kind of right next to her up in the front of the room. And I started to think, what about Miss Foley made me remember her, and what made her so inspiring to me. And I remembered one day, I sat down in her living room and we were drinking cranberry juice, and I remember the one day where you were walking around the room, and I had decided to write very small, to make very tiny penmanship, so that from a distance my paper would look sort of blank. And Miss Foley was making her rounds, and she stopped at my desk, and I felt her hand on my shoulder, and she looked down and she said, Barry, what happened to your wonderful looping letters? And I thought to myself, as I sat in her living room drinking the cranberry juice, that was one of the few times in school ever I got the message, it's okay to be who you are already, that you just don't have to squeeze yourself into this little box and to survive. And so Miss Foley was that kind of teacher, and I wrote a song about her, which I got to sing at her funeral a few years ago, and it's called If I'd Never Had a Teacher. So here it is. Her name was Carolyn Foley, and she taught fourth grade. I was her favorite student, I thought, for 3 decades. She read my stories to the room, I sat beside her desk. I loved the way she sang to us, I even loved her tests. But teachers, they're just lazy, it's what the people say. They babysit for 3 o'clock, then they're home all day. Think of those vacations, all that time away. If I'd never had a teacher, I'd still turn out okay. She had a lot of textbooks, but she left them on the shelf. Miss Foley taught with projects, we wrote some books ourselves. I studied the Egyptians, that Pharaoh of the sun. I still have my cardboard pyramid, my Tomb of Akhenaton. But teachers, you're just lazy, it's what the people say. They babysit till 3 o'clock, then they're home all day. Think of those vacations, all that time away. If I'd never had a teacher, I'd still turn out okay. She rarely lost her temper, but when she did, we knew. And later she'd apologize, and we'd say sorry too. She wasn't always perfect, but she usually was kind. And she had a way of holding up a mirror to our minds. But teachers, they're just lazy, it's what the people say. They babysit till 3 o'clock, then they're home all day. And think of those vacations, all that time away. If I'd never had a teacher, I'd still turn out okay. Miss Foley never married, she never had offspring, unless you count the 600 she cheered on to sing. We rarely come to visit her, we hardly ever write, but she follows us around each day and sits with us each night. Billy is a scientist, Jane, she reads the news. Sarah is a doctor now, Phil just gave up booze. We met at the reunion and we talked about the past. Who was your favorite teacher? What was your favorite class? Remember Mr. Johnston? We all played ancient Greeks. Miss Hawthorne read a poem by Keats. The tears rolled down her cheeks. And what about Miss Foley? Her class was so much fun. I was her favorite student, we say in unison. But teachers, you're just lazy. It's what the people say. The babysit till 3 o'clock, then they're home all day. Think of those vacations, all that time away. If I'd never had a teacher, I'd still turn out okay. Oh, you who pay the taxes, oh, you who make the laws, remember all your teachers and cherish them, because you wouldn't be so self-assured, no, you wouldn't be so smart if you hadn't had a Miss Foley to hold you in her heart. But teachers, they're just lazy, it's what you often say. They babysit till 3 o'clock, then they're home all day. And think of those vacations, all that time away. If I'd never had a teacher, if I'd never had a teacher, if I'd never had a teacher, who would I be today?